Hi y'all, it's Angela Prophet, and thank you so much for joining me today for Timeline Magic for Wedding Planners. I'm so excited that you have decided to take an hour out of your crazy busy schedule, especially during wedding season, and spend it with me. I promise I'm going to go over lots and lots of valuable information. I'm going to talk pretty fast, so let me know if you want a copy of this. I'm happy to share it with you guys. I'm here to help. So let's jump in and get started. So what you're going to learn today, what I'm going to talk about, is the top 10 tips for creating timelines, how to use templates to save time, and how to create streamlined communication for greater accountability. I don't know about you guys, but I don't do timelines for my health. I do it so that everybody's accountable and everybody knows who's supposed to be doing what. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Angela Prophet again, and I'm a wedding planner. I've been a wedding planner for going on 15 years now, and I've actually grown into more of an entrepreneur and productivity coach, and I'm really passionate about teaching the wedding industry about how they can be more productive and how they can make a profit doing their passion, which a lot of people love doing weddings, but they hate the business side of it, and it takes so much time. But me being a tech geek over the years, I've learned how to be pretty productive, and so I'm out there in our industry trying to help teach about wed tech and help other professionals understand that you can definitely make a profit doing your passion. And I have a very special guest today. His name is Eddie Babbage. He's the CEO of Timeline Genius, and he's going to give you his background in just a little bit. But I met Eddie several years ago, and when he told me about his software, I was amazed. But I sat back for a little bit just to make sure that it was going to stick around. And I will say that he's interviewed hundreds and hundreds of planners across the world, and he's taken what we say and he's actually implemented it. And so I don't see this software going anywhere anytime soon. And so after I go through the tips, I'm going to bring Eddie on. So definitely you want to stay for that. So I always go over the wrong way versus the right way, because in my opinion, there's definitely a wrong way versus a right way. So some of the planners that I coach, they're like, yeah, I do timelines in Word or Pages. And I'm like, well, where does the document live? They're like, what do you mean? Like, well, is it just living on your computer, or do you back it up, or are you using software, or do you use Google Drive? You gotta back up your stuff, guys. Like you know how labor intensive timelines are, and if we spend all this time, we start our timelines like a year in advance, and it is a working document for literally a year. And if something happens to it, which a long time ago, that was me, it did happen, and I lost a timeline, and you talk about depressed and just wanted to cry. It was, actually, I think I did cry. So I want to go over a few things today, like the hard way versus the easy way. So, the hard way is that living on your computer, and what if your computer crashes, or you spill coffee on a hard drive, or water, or you drop a hard drive, or, your office burns down. Like, why would you not put your things in the cloud? Like, I don't understand. I do understand people are intimidated by technology and they're afraid of it. So that's why I love teaching it, so people become more comfortable with it. Another thing that's really hard is updating a timeline over a year's time and then communicating the changes to all the people involved. So I've learned that the easy way is to use softwares or Google Drive or something that can share live updates. So you're definitely in the right place if you find the process of creating wedding day timelines to be like such a huge, tedious chore. And if you want to basically free up more time, and it's really easy, like, you're definitely going to want to see what we're going to show you today. And be sure you stay until the end, because if you do, we're actually going to share a free bonus with you, which is your very own timeline template that you can use. So this is an awesome bonus feature. All right, so we're going to jump into the key components. Like, if you're a planner, you know that every single timeline we do, it has to have the date and the name of the client, the locations, the addresses, the contact name, number, email for every vendor. Most of our events have 45 plus people on them. We've got to do load in and load out, and heaven forbid someone be late, right? It's just kind of a nightmare. I've actually had people fight over the loading dock. Wedding party, hair and makeup schedules. There's just so many things that could change. And like if hair and makeup changes, that could back up the photo video schedule for the wedding party. There's usually always a ceremony associated with a wedding, and there's ushers and hostesses and kids. And then there's lots of reminders that as the planner, I make sure they don't have gum, their cell phones off, like who sits where. We have divorced parents all the time, and they don't want to sit on the same row, and we deal with that. And then post-ceremony, typically we have like a cocktail hour, and we have to choose the type of dinner, whether it be station, seated dinner, buffet, past hors d'oeuvres. Do we have a seating chart? Do the guests get chargers? What's the napkin fold? Like who's bringing what? Like it literally goes on and on. And so for me, doing the same thing over and over is insanity, and then expecting a different result. So if you want a different result and you like hate sitting down to do the timelines, I really think that this tool is probably going to change your life. And like, I'm not just saying that, I truly believe in that. All right, so we're going to jump in. So tip 1 is have the version number on your timeline, because it does change. And so when a client hires us, every single time we make a change, and let me clarify, this is after the timeline's gone out. We usually send them out about a week before the wedding, because as you know, as a planner, things change like constantly. And so we always have the version number to make sure that people know that they have the right version. So that's really important. Continuing with tip 1, the other really important piece for me is to be able to share access with our clients and our vendors. If I couldn't, this would probably look like me walking around with like a gazillion post-it notes on me, and I would like not be doing what I'm doing today because this is insanity to me. So being able to share the document with our timelines with clients and vendors has cut down our email over 300 a day. Like we tracked it for a year when we started doing this paperless process, and it really changed our life, and it changed how I did business. And so again, making sure every time I make a change that the version number is always on there. And so I have a goal every time I do a timeline. My goal is no questions. I don't want anybody asking me questions, because if I send out a great timeline, all the information's there. There shouldn't be any questions. But if they're calling me and texting me and emailing me, that gives me the opportunity to do a better job and be a better planner at communicating. And then I have people say, oh, but people will text me and say, what time do I have to be there? And what about this and what about that? You have to potty train these people. And I'm not being funny, like I'm being serious. You've got to potty train your clients and vendors. And when they ask these questions over and over, say, it's in the timeline, it's in the timeline, it's in the timeline. And after about 27 times you say it's in the timeline, they get it. And I actually teach people, like on Macs, you can hit Command F for find, and you can type in like photo, video, cake, and very quickly like find the things that pertain to you. And then also make sure you're clearly communicating. Like I have a funny story. I was working with a new video company, and they had never worked at this venue before, and it's called A Venue or Avenue, however you want to pronounce it. It's actually closed now, but it said A Venue, and he was texting me, and he's like, where's the venue? What's the venue? Is it like a private thing? And I'm like, it's a venue. And he's like, I know it's at a venue, but what's the name of the venue? I'm like, that is the name of the venue. Like, and finally we just called each other, and we like laughed for 10 minutes about it. So you got to clearly communicate. All right, tip 2, clearly break up the day for each day that you're doing a timeline for. I don't know about you guys, but Nashville has become like crazy for destination weddings in a great way for the city and for business. And so a lot of these clients are doing like 3 and 4 day things. And so we'll have vendors loading in and out, around the clock. And so making sure that everybody knows like what day of the week you're talking about. You can change the color, change the font. You just want to make sure that people show up when they need to on the right day. So definitely make headers for each day of your events. All right, tip 3, use a template. Don't do the same thing over and over. And a lot of you probably use Pages in Word, and again, that's okay, but make sure that you're backing it up, or start a template if you're not using a software, and make sure that you're being productive with the way that you're spending your time. And again, make sure it's shareable and make sure that you're backing your stuff up. Like we have used Dropbox and Google Drive for a long time. And years ago, when I only used Dropbox, I had a client in another country working on her timeline. I was working on it. My assistant was working on it. So, and all three of us kept hitting save because we're OCD about losing changes. And at the end of 8 hours, guess what? Dropbox saved nothing because it got confused. And so I was like, we're never going to use Dropbox again for editing and sharing. We use Dropbox all the time for quotes and things like that. But if we're editing things, like using a software that has the collaboration feature or Google Drive is much, much safer in my opinion. So this is in the background what our templates look like, and we make sure that we have all the vendors listed, the times, we do the load in, the load out, just making sure that everybody knows where they're supposed to be. Tip 4 is ask who needs what info. So for example, when we do one big running timeline, we'll send it to all the vendors, but I'll ask our clients, like, do you want all this to go to the wedding party and the VIPs and the parents? Because if you do, which is what I prefer because they need to see how much work goes into this, that's great. But then I have other clients that are like, that is TMI. Like, that is too much information, and my wedding party is never going to look at that. And you can always tell who the type A people are at the rehearsal because they like read the timeline and comment on it, which is awesome. And definitely like let the wedding party know like hair, makeup, photo, video, like what they need to do so that everybody knows and they're all held accountable. Tip 5, ceremonies. So having a template for all the different ceremonies we do is super helpful. It saves a ton of time and quite frankly a lot of mental brain power. So I was raised Catholic, but a lot of people ask me, like, what religion are you? I'm like, whatever religion my client is that weekend, because I have to be educated on what my clients are wanting, and I want to be able to respect their religion. And so we do church ceremonies, we do Jewish ceremonies, we do same-sex ceremonies, we do Indian ceremonies, beach ceremonies, and I mean, we could just keep going on and on, but each of those different ceremonies needs something different. And so by having a template, it just saves a ton of time. And so this is the background of what our ceremony timelines start as, but then of course we fill it out with the songs and who's walking who and who is sitting where, and we go through all of that prior to rehearsal. It amazes me how many women that work at churches that wait till the day of to ask the bride all this stuff. Like, that drives me crazy. And so a lot of times we collect this anyway when a church person is involved, and 90% of the time they really appreciate it that we go into the depth that we go into. So make sure you ask questions prior to rehearsal, such as what's the music, are there readings, kids, no kids, where do the kids sit, all that kind of stuff. And when kids are involved, I definitely make sure that I know who's in charge of them, so if they don't quite act the way we want them to, there's a backup plan for that. So tip 6, and I put this picture on here because I was a gymnast, and I sometimes do back bends, not really to read my computer upside down, but just to get up and stretch. And so after the ceremony is over, you've got to be flexible. You've got to learn how to go with the flow. And if you don't, you're going to get real stressed out real quick. So I put this picture on here because, if I only had $1 for every time someone said, oh my God, you wear a radio like J-Lo, like in that movie. And I'm like, no, these are for efficiency. Like, if we don't have Wi-Fi and we can't use our phones, like the radios save my life, like literally, because when we're in a huge venue and there's 45 different vendors like in the background making things happen, without the radios, it could really, really, really be problematic and just really unproductive. Things can go nuts sometimes. And so this is the background of post-ceremony, like all the different things that we're doing. And there's a lot of things going on at the same time. So the bride and groom are eating a private meal. Some of my brides change into other dresses. They get their hair redone. The guests usually are a cocktail hour, the band's getting ready, they're practicing saying the names to bring everybody in. And so there's a lot that has to stay on schedule. So recently, there was a story where this bride, it was a winter wedding, and we had a fog machine, and we had this whole thing planned where she was going to be announced into the reception by the band, and they were going to do their first dance, and the fog was going to come out, and then we were going to have falling snow for their second choreographed dance, and then when they left at the end of the night, we were going to have fireworks. But in order to do all that in this venue, the sprinkler system had to be turned off, and the fire marshal had to be there to do it. Well, we hired a fire marshal, we turned the permit in, all that, and we're waiting, no fire marshal. So I go up to the bride and I'm like, we are still tinkering with the fog machine a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and announce you guys and just go to your table, have a seat. We're going to go ahead and get started with dinner because it's a seated dinner. We don't want the meat to dry out, and then we'll just do your first dance after dinner. So throughout the entire night, like, I was buying us time, like, on the phone trying to figure out, like, where is this fire marshal? And, like, I'm, like, dying inside. Like, I just want to sit down and cry. And so, in the poor band, like, thank God they know me and they've worked with me before and they know this is not normal. But we kept, like, moving things around and, like, cutting the cake earlier than what we were going to. I mean, I didn't even have time to update a timeline for this wedding. And finally, like, I don't know, 30 minutes or so before the exit, the fire marshal finally shows up, and we're able to do the fog, and we're able to do the snow, we're able to do the fireworks, all at the end. So the people who left early missed all the action. And we had it spread out over the night, but I literally saw the fire marshal, and I, like, burst into tears, and he's probably like, what is wrong with this crazy chick? But, of course, I, like, went into the bathroom and, like, boo-hooed, but it's stressful when you have so many changes and so many people that you have to talk to. And so having a timeline and just all the people that you need to talk to then and there really, really helps without having to think. Tip 7, it's not over yet. So just because the wedding and the reception's over, as a planner, it's not over for you. And so what happens next, right? Talk about that. So we always talk about post-reception and the loadout for the vendors and who's responsible for what. Because if you don't tag somebody to it, guess who ends up doing it? You, me, as the planner. So who takes the gifts? Where do the flowers go? Where does top of cake go? Who returns the tuxedos? All those types of things. I don't mind helping, but, like, the wedding party and the family is great at helping. Like, returning tuxedos, that's like a best man duty. So identifying and communicating that to the wedding party prior to is super, super, super important. All right, tip 8. So, list. Lists are my best friend. I love making lists, and some people say, this is so annoying. What? This list is so long. I'm like, no, it holds everyone accountable, and I want to make sure at the end of the night that our client gets all of this stuff back. Because a lot of people give us, like, really important things that have been in their family for, like, 100 years. So we work together as a team to make sure that everything is on the list. And it also holds everyone accountable for what they're supposed to do and who's responsible for what, which is super important. So we just had a huge Indian wedding this past weekend, and we had a drape vendor flip in the room. And so I left the room for like 30 minutes to go and do something, and then I came back and he's like, okay, the new design's done. And I looked up, I'm like, that's not the right design. And he's like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, no, I do kid around and I like to have fun, but I'm not in the mood to kid today. I'm tired just like you are. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And he pulled up an old version. I'm like, that is not the right version. And so I'm like, don't get mad at me. You have the most up-to-date version. And, you know, he wasn't mad, but they had to go back to the warehouse, get the other drape, load it in the next morning. So it really just threw everybody off. Like, when you're tired, you got to really pay attention. And so this is the background of what it looks like whenever we get a list of things from our couples. And then we always have on there what we're providing too, because obviously we want our stuff back at the end of the night too. And tip 9 is, I like people to know what the planner's doing. What's the planner doing? It's hilarious to me. People think that when I'm doing destination weddings, I'm like laying on a hammock, like hanging out at the beach, which is so not true. Or they think I'm getting my nails done, or I'm getting a pedicure, or I'm at the spa with the bride getting a massage. And actually I have some clients, they're like, you're going to come out on the dance floor and dance with us, right? Like, do the Cupid Shuffle and like all these fun dances. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be out there dancing with you. Like, I have things to do. We have things going on in the background to make sure that things are moving along perfectly. So I like for people to know what is the planner doing. And so we actually list out on all of our timelines what our team is doing so that people are aware of what's going on behind the scenes. And then tip 10, last but not least, is plan B. Like, what is your plan B? And I'm not just talking for like rain. I'm talking like tragedy. So years ago, Nashville flooded. This was Interstate 24, which I drive down quite frequently. And this was the day, it was a Saturday, the first weekend of May. And we couldn't do anything about the weather. And the town flooded. And we had to work together as a team to pull together and either move these parties that we were putting on, or everybody go home and rescheduling. So this is where insurance comes in for acts of God. Again, this is the interstate. This is the actual road going to Gaylord Opryland Hotel. We had a huge Italian wedding at this hotel, and it flooded. It completely flooded. They closed down for months and months to rebuild it, and we actually rescheduled that wedding, and we were the first wedding there for the grand reopening, and it happened to be on New Year's Eve. So, when tragedy strikes, you kind of lose your brain a little bit, and you go into like survival mode. And so having my vendors easily accessible to me on the timelines that I'm running, we had 8 displaced events that month, so it was quite a mess. But again, we all pulled together and made every single wedding that we had planned happen. So now I want to introduce Eddie Babbage, the CEO of Timeline Genius. And Eddie is our guest presenter for today. And I'm so excited because what he has created is amazing. It is the #1 software that I would do anything to have, and I use a lot of software. So Eddie has been out there for years. I've known him for several years, like trying to solve challenges and problems for planners, and he's interviewed hundreds and hundreds of planners asking, like, if I build this software called Timeline Genius, like what is it going to do? Like, how can it make your life better? And I will tell you, as a planner for 15 years, it's made life so much better. And really using your time wisely. So, Eddie, without further ado, if you're ready.
Hey Angela, I am ready, and thank you so much for sharing all of that valuable information, and thank you for having me as your guest here today. I'm honored to be a part of this webinar. As you know, I've got some really exciting things to share here on our webinar, but before I get into that, I just want to tell everybody a little bit about my background. I've had a pretty non-traditional path into the wedding and event industry. I studied math at Duke University, and then I got a law degree from Harvard, and then I practiced corporate law for a few years and went on to build 2 tech companies. And then I had a conversation with my wife around the middle of 2013 that set me on a path for a whole new project. My wife told me, she said, Eddie, when I was a DIY bride planning our wedding, there were so many logistics involved that I bet wedding planners could really use some new technology to help out with their jobs. And it turns out she was dead right, as usual. Don't tell her I said that. But yeah, on her suggestion, I started doing a bunch of research. I interviewed over 200 wedding planners across the country, and I just asked them a very simple question. I'd say, what's the most tedious part of your job? And I heard the same answer over and over. Planners would tell me, Eddie, I love being a wedding planner, but timelines are definitely tedious and time consuming. And after hearing this so much, I just kind of became obsessed. I was diagramming everybody's timeline workflow and studying all of these different timelines. And at this point, I've spent pretty much every day over the last 3.5 years thinking rigorously and deeply about ways to streamline the timeline creation process. And one really cool thing about the research journey that I've been through is that it's allowed me to collaborate with industry leaders, well, like you, Angela. I mean, that's how we met, through my research, and
Yep.
other celebrity planners, yeah, and other celebrity planners like, Donnie Brown, Sasha Souza, thought leaders like Sean Lowe and Tammy Ferrero, Debbie Orwatt. And after doing all of this research and work, for years, I've developed something that will make it so much easier for all of you to create amazing wedding day timelines. And the tool that I've developed is called Timeline Genius. And when I show you Timeline Genius, you're going to see how it incorporates all of these powerful tips and strategies that Angela was talking about. So get ready, because it's magic time now. I'm going to open up my browser and show you Timeline Genius so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. Hopefully everybody's seeing my screen here now that I've transitioned to my browser. This is Timeline Genius. It's web-based, which, first of all, right away, we're hitting the point that you so astutely covered, Angela. Everything needs to be on the cloud, not just living on a hard drive somewhere where you can lose your computer, spill coffee on it or whatever. So right away, everything's up in the cloud. I'm going to sign in now. And the first thing that you'll notice here is when I go to my timeline section, I have a Rolodex section here. And this is a real time saver. I can't tell you how many planners I've talked to, that are experienced, and they know you're supposed to have your vendor contact information built into your timeline, because you may need to actually, call the limo driver on the spot, but you don't want to go fishing through your email inbox to find vendor contact info. And you certainly don't want to be going on Google to try to find vendor info. So that's why we built this virtual Rolodex, where you can save all of your clients right here. When you want to add a new client, you just click Add Client. You put in their first name, their last name, phone, email, notes if you want to, and you can search for clients now in a very streamlined way. Like if I want to find all people with a 502 phone number or whatever email address, I can just search. And pretty much the same thing with your venues, right? You have all your venues listed here. Now, the one difference with the venues is I actually have a venue name and a contact person name, and also venue guidelines. Angela, I think you and I have definitely talked to, I think you spoke to this idea of your load in times. The idea behind the venue guidelines section here is you can save the details from your venue contracts. So you're not referring to your venue contract every time you work in a venue. You can save the notes about parking and guidelines. And your vendors are pretty much like the venues. The only difference with the vendors is you have a role field here. So when you add a new vendor, you can say, photographer, you can say caterer, videographer, etc. And one thing that's really cool that I should point out is we have an import-export feature. So, when people are onboarding, we can easily take all your contacts and just import them for you, so you're not having to manually enter them. And you can export them in CSV format whenever you want. Now, the real action, I guess, in Timeline Genius is here in the My Timeline section. First of all, you have an archive section where you have all of the timelines for your past clientele. You can see I did the Beyonce, Jay-Z timeline, so I've got some pretty high profile sample clientele in here. So these are all your old timelines. And then you have your active timelines here for events that are either coming up or that are in progress. So now where things get super cool is here. I'm going to create a new timeline. I click create new timeline. I'm going to use the Genius feature. And Angela, you spoke again very astutely about the idea of using templates. Well, the Genius feature is templates on freaking steroids. I mean, there's nothing else like this that I've ever come across. So let me show you how this works. When you type in your bride, I'm going to put in, say, Janet Baker's. Now, this is just pulling from my client Rolodex. And actually, if I wanted to add a new person here on the spot, I could just type in their name and do a quick add. And this would put them right into my client Rolodex. I don't have to get out and go over there. I put them right in here, and it would also add them here. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to use existing people in my client Rolodex. Now, I'm going to give my timeline a name, Janet and Chris timeline, okay? Now, what I'm doing here, really important to point this out, I'm going to give a ceremony date. I am just putting in the key information for this wedding, the religious tradition. And all of this is flexible. If you don't see the right religious tradition for your wedding, you can always edit this on the back end. But the idea here is these are all of the key data points about this wedding that are going to drive the flow and structure of my timeline, how long my ceremony is, what about my reception flow. You know, sometimes you have clients that want to get their first dance right out of the way because they're nervous and then go into toasting and cake cutting. Other times, cake cutting, then toasting, then first dance. Whether or not there's a first look, yes or no. You know, these are things that really alter and drive the flow of your timeline. So now I get to put in my venues and vendors. Now, obviously, this is just pulling from my venue Rolodex, okay? So I put in my ceremony venue. Now, watch what happens here. In some cases, you all know, the ceremony and reception venue are the same, but in other cases, very frequently, the ceremony and reception might be at different places. When I select a different venue, Timeline Genius is smart enough to know that these are two different venues. So it says, well, what's the travel time, Eddie, between these two venues? I'm going to put in 30 minutes. It's going to ask me, where are my girls getting ready? Where are my guys getting ready? I'll say they're getting ready at the River Falls. Now, this is all optional, but if you know this information, it's good to go ahead and put it in. And Angela, you talked a lot about, and again, this is a very important point, the idea of things saving for you. So the good thing is all of this information is being saved. If I need to go look a word up on dictionary.com, now I'm showing that I'm a bit of a nerd because this is like one of my favorite sites. And then if I come back to Timeline Genius and go to my timelines, I can now go to my pre-active section. Well, there's my Janet and Chris timeline. I should probably not have it be Janet and Christ. Let's not make that. Okay, so Janet and Chris timeline. Now I'm gonna finish and all of my information saved here, so I can just kind of work on this at my leisure. Now, again, this is optional, so I'm not gonna put all of this information in, but let me show you guys some really cool and magical things here, okay? When I put in my photographer, okay, this is big. You know, how long do you have your photographer booked? Okay, now this is capturing all of this information because the system is going to automatically build my timeline for me based on the information I'm putting in. My hairstylist, watch this, guys. So I'm going to put in, say, stylish dues, and now it's going to say, well, do you have an assistant for the hairstylist? How long is your bride going to get? You probably want your bride to get longer than the other girls. How many other girls are getting hair? And how long does each of the other girls get? Let's say that there are 4 girls, Mary, Sally, Sue, and Patty that are getting hair. And it's going to ask me the same thing for makeup, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say, you know, Elegant Shades is my makeup provider. And let's say there are 4 girls getting makeup. And just to keep it simple, I'll do the same 4 girls that are, you know, getting hair services. You don't have to. Yeah, you definitely don't have to. So let's do Patty and Mary and let's say Sue. And again, I won't fill all of this out. I'll just do, you know, say my cocktail music, ceremony music, and then maybe a florist, and we'll move on. So when you're ready, you just advance to the next page. And now you can kind of look over all your information here. 5:30, okay, this all looks good. So now I'm going to go ahead and click Generate Timeline. And now Timeline Genius is going to use a very powerful algorithm that is going to take all of this information that I've input, and it's going to construct a very detailed, tailor-made initial timeline for me. Now, the key point I want to make here is this is totally editable. In fact, it's easier to edit this than it would be if it were a Word document. But right away, look, it put my hair and makeup schedule together. How much of a time saver is that? And just a stress saver. I mean, it put my bride in at the last makeup slot, the second to last hair slot. Nobody's double booked for hair and makeup. You know, I said that there's a first look in this timeline. So here's my first look photos, and everything else is built around that accordingly. I can change all of these times whenever I want to. I said that this is a 5:30 ceremony. So there's my 5:30 ceremony. I said the ceremony's 30 minutes long. So if it starts at 5:30, it's going to end at 6 p.m. I said that the ceremony and reception venues are different. So it means, you know, my wedding party's leaving the ceremony at 6:10. They should arrive at 6:40 because I said there's a 30-minute travel time. For my reception, I said cake cutting happens before toasting, happens before the first dance. So I've got reminders. Angela, you talked again, great point about lists. Look at this list of reminders that's pre-populated. Now, if I had said that this was a Jewish wedding, it would have said, don't forget the pin to sign the ketubah or the Kiddush cup. Like, it's really tailor-made. And if I want to change any of this, like, I just click on it and I say, you know what, there is no garter toss in this wedding. And I really don't want to forget these framed family photos. So I'm going to make that bold. Okay, now, Angela, we talked about venue guidelines, this notion of like load-ins. Well, look, automatically inserted into my timeline from the Rolodex. And if I want to edit or change, I just click on it, new thing right here, whatever I want to type, I can do that. And I just click save. Next big time saver, venue contacts and vendor contacts, automatically added here, right? I think I expanded something there. Yeah, they're automatically added here. Let me refresh the page. I think my view got a little wonky on me. Huh, that's weird. There we go. Okay, so my venue and vendor contacts are automatically added down here for me. So that's just an automatic time saver. And my wedding party contacts are here so I can start adding bridesmaids and groomsmen, etc. Now let me show you where things get super cool, okay? Angela, you talked about TMI, too much information. Well, how about this? When you want to show your florist a version of the timeline that just has her items, how about you just click a button and instantly get a PDF with your logo on it that shows just the timeline items that are relevant to the florist. And I can do that for all of my vendors and venues because Timeline Genius is smart enough to know when I click this, every item can be associated with a given venue or vendor. I can check a box to have it included in the wedding party timeline because most experienced planners, you don't want to give the full timeline to your wedding party. So watch, I just click on my bride. Here's the wedding party version of the timeline because every item can be flagged or not flagged as being a wedding party timeline item. And the system is making intelligent assumptions for me. The Genius feature is assuming, who's assigned to what, but I can always override that. I can, get rid of that assignment. I can add another, lighting vendor to this and, then they're automatically added here. I can see at a glance all of my vendor assignments. If I go to my assign view here, I can see who's assigned to what. It's all color coded. So if I say, oh, I want to assign my lighting person to this item and this item, and I can hold my shift key now and check a bunch of boxes at once to these items. I can say now assign selection, and it's going to assign Brilliant Lights, my lighting vendor, to those 13 items. And now those items will appear on the Brilliant Lights timeline. And let me show you another feature. And I think after experienced planners, when you see this, you may like literally get up at your desk right now and do like the Gangnam style dance or something, because how many times have you had a client tell you, I think I want to move this by, 15 minutes forward or something. So what they don't realize is that single event affects that, it affects this, and it might actually affect all of these items. I'm just holding my shift key to check a bunch of boxes at once. It may actually affect all of these items, right? And here I need to move these 32 items. I might want to move them, say, 15 minutes ahead. I just click bulk actions, time shift. I can go forward or backwards. I'm going to go forward by 15 minutes. I'm going to click apply. And Timeline Genius now is going to move 32 items 15 minutes forward. And it's going to highlight to show me which items were moved. Now I'm going to undo, and you can imagine how long it would take to do that in Microsoft Word or Excel or something to move on, and the reduction in the likelihood of you making errors, because when you're going one by one, you can make an error. We're all human. So like I said, all of this is totally editable. That's a key point here. If I want to change something, I just click on it, right? I want to come here. I know planners love bullet points, so I'm going to show, bullet points here, thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. You may want to make something bold. You may want to make something, a different color. You may want to highlight something here in yellow. Whatever you want to do, you can change it and make the item look the way you want. Obviously, you can change times. Like if I click on this and I want to change the time, I just click on it. I can change it to something weird, like, I'll do 2:12 p.m. I click save. The cool thing about Timeline Genius is it's always going to keep my timelines in chronological order for me. Not only that, if you want to move something, you can easily just drag and drop. Like I'm going to grab that 2 p.m. item and just move it back here to 1:30 and drop it. And Timeline Genius is going to update that to 1:30. Obviously, you can add additional items. You just click add timeline item. You can even put these items on a whole new day if you want to. Like I can put this at, new day and give it whatever time of day I want. And when I click save, it's going to put, that item on the appropriate day at the appropriate time. Now, the last really powerful feature that I want to talk about, and Angela, this is just really to tie back to a key point that you emphasized. One of the real troubles, I guess, with Word is like timelines are inherently a collaborative document. It's not just for the planner, even though you're the master of the ceremony, so to speak, like you're the master puppeteer, if you will, but the timeline is for all vendors to stay on the same page and to move in sync throughout the day. So if you're like most experienced planners, you need to get feedback from your vendors, right? So what happens now, instead of you sending out a Word document to 15 different people and getting, changes and stuff that you don't even necessarily want, when you have a timeline in Timeline Genius, you just go to your Collaborate tab and you can see all of your clients and vendors and venues. And now I click Manage and I can see everybody that's involved in this timeline and I can invite them. Now, when you send an invitation, for example, I invited John Smith, my groom. I sent John an invitation. Well, when John gets the invitation email, this is what it looks like in his email. It's got your company's logo. It's an extension of your brand. When he clicks go to my timeline, he doesn't have to log in or anything. It's just going to take John to his timeline. Now, here's where the collaboration features on Timeline Genius are so powerful. You actually have control on an item by item basis. It's not just like an all or nothing kind of collaboration, like say Google Docs. Like here, I can say, oh, you know what? I want to set this item to be viewable by John. So John, when he comes here, it's viewable, but he can't make any changes. He can expand this item and write a comment and say, thanks, or whatever, and I will see it. When John makes that comment, if I come here, I get notifications here. So if I refresh my page, and even if I didn't refresh my page, I would get a notification right up here, kind of like the Facebook alerts, that's going to show me John actually made a comment. See, John Smith made a comment. Now, when I actually log in here, I can see too, okay, I want to read John's comment. But look, I don't have to let him view it. I might also have a surprise here that I don't want John to know about. So I'm going to hide that item from John. Now, John cannot see that 10 a.m. item because I hid it. Or in the third case, you may actually want to make something editable. Good example, your wedding party contact section. I don't know about you, but you may want to cut down on your emails. If you're like most planners, you get a ton of emails, which are a real distraction. Why not just let the bride or groom go in and add his or her contact information directly into the wedding party contact section? So that's the collaboration. There are a lot more features here that I could show you, but that's just those are the core features. And when you're finished with your timeline, I'll go back to my Janet and Chris timeline now and just say here, if you want to, some planners want to customize the heading and call out like sunset time and things like that, you can do that. Whatever you do, whenever you're ready, if you want a PDF version of your timeline, you just click download. You can select the full timeline, the wedding party timeline, your vendor timelines, your venue timelines. You can do PDF format or Word format. And I'll select PDF and you click download. And what you're going to get is, let me see here. I think I already had a download. So I've got a zip file now with my download. So I just double click on that and it has all of those timelines that I wanted. So here's my full timeline, for example. I'm just going to pull that up. It's a PDF. It's got my logo on it, all the formatting that I did, and all of this stuff. So, and everybody's timelines are really customized to be what they want it to be. So yours will look totally unique and customized for you. But that's a whirlwind tour of Timeline Genius. So, now that I've shown everybody, shown Timeline Genius, I do have a very special offer to share with everybody. I know you're all gonna love it, but before I go into that, Angela, do you want to maybe chime in here again? As an experienced, successful, tech-savvy planner, maybe just share your honest thoughts here about Timeline Genius.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this before. I mean, you know where I stand. Like the whole reason that I was so excited for us to do this webinar together, and the reason I wanted to have you on as a special guest is because I know Timeline Genius is amazing. And so when we recently spoke together in Memphis at the Wedding Market News, like WedTech conference, and just I sat in the audience and I watched every planner like they were leaning forward, like I'm really into body language, and they were like, oh, they were literally mouthing like, oh my God. And like people came up to me afterwards and they're like, what do you think about this? You know, like whispering. I'm like, this is amazing. I've known Eddie, I think like 3 or so years now. We met in New York at Starbucks because you were doing your research. And after that meeting, I think you learned how much of a tech geek slash nerd I am. And, you know, I will say, like, I am not going to put my name on something or tell people about things that I don't believe in. And there's been a lot of software companies try to come into the wedding space. And it's funny because when I question them about how they back up and how they collaborate and how they do this and how they do that, and their answers, I'm like, how do you sleep at night? Like, I would never use your product. Like, I'm just super blunt and it gives them something to think about. But when I met you, you had an answer for all of it. And I was like, this is cool. You know, and then I just sat back. I'm like, well, it would be really good if you could do this and this and this. And then you did it all. And so I've watched Timeline Genius grow. I think literally going on 3 years now. So I know it's not going anywhere. So I'm completely comfortable using it, telling people about it. Because again, if something fails and they're like, well, I heard about it from Angela Profit, I mean, that's my reputation. And so I want people to believe in and love the stuff that I love that help me run my business more effectively every single day. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I'm doing the webinar with you, but like Timeline Genius is the best tool for wedding day timelines. Like in my opinion, it's the best I've seen, and I've seen a lot. I even go to Collision, which is like a conference for software nerds and new apps coming out. I haven't seen anything like it. And I think the difference is you've really taken time to do the research and talk directly to hundreds of planners to find out what can we do differently? How can we make your life easier? And if I mean, I use lots of softwares and lots of tools and pay for them. And people are like, how much do you spend on this stuff? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I don't care, but it saves me so much time that to me, it's priceless. And so, but if I had to pick one, I would say Timeline Genius would be my number one pick because it is the most intensive labor thing that I do to make sure I am successful in my job for my clients. And that's why people come back and keep hiring us over and over, is because they can trust us. They know we've got it. And as long as we have a timeline and the vendors know what they're doing and the wedding party knows what they're doing, we're golden.
Thank you so much for the positive, words and the glowing endorsement. And, like I said, I do have a very special offer for everybody here today. And you will not find this offer anywhere on our site. But for the rest of today only, you can actually sign up with Timeline Genius and get unlimited timelines for just $249 annually. And as you think about this special offer, I want you to consider one question, which is, what is your time worth? I mean, let's say that you're doing 12 weddings in a year, and Timeline Genius saves you, say, 3 hours on each of those weddings. That's 36 hours that you're going to save. And what could you do with that time? You could be out getting new clients. I mean, that's almost a full work week. So, and if you're doing 20 or 30 events, then, we're talking about potentially saving 60 to 90 hours. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of time for you to spend building your business. So again, this offer is going to end at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tonight. If you want to take advantage of it, just go to www.timelinegenius.com/webinar offer. Again, that's www.timelinegenius.com/webinar offer. And just to give you all of the details here, because I want you to have all the information you need. Again, this is an unlimited package for $249 a year. And to give you some context, the retail price for a single timeline on our site is $29. So for the price of roughly 8 timelines, you are getting unlimited access to Timeline Genius. And the really cool thing is, this is really cool, you get to lock in these special terms for the lifetime of your company. So no matter how many new features we add, I mean, we're always rolling out new features. No matter how many new features we add, no matter how our prices might increase over time, you will always have the same amazing deal locked in. And not only that, you're going to get direct access to me. You're going to have my email address. You're going to have my mobile number. I will be personally invested in helping you get ramped up. We are fanatical about customer support. Yeah, and we'll help you do your import for your contacts and all that, just to make it easy for you to ramp up. And the last thing I want to say here that I think really just makes this a no-brainer is there is a money back, 100% money back guarantee. So if you start using Timeline Genius and at any point you want a refund, you'll get it, no questions asked. So there's literally no risk for you to try out and to take advantage of this special package. So go to timelinegenius.com/webinar offer, take advantage of this. And as promised, we do have a bonus to share with you. Brooke, will you please make the download link available now for the bonus that Angela mentioned? We have a timeline template that I think you're going to find very helpful. It's based on my research. So Brooke's making that available, I'm sure, as we speak. And there are so many planners. Actually, I'm going to go a little off script here. Let me show you all something. As Angela was speaking, I literally got this email. This is not at all staged. As you can tell, I'm not even logged into my account. I starred this. It came in at 1:17 p.m. This is a planner named Carolyn O'Brien in Portland, and she said, wanted you to see one of my photographer's comments below about how impressed she is with my timeline. Thank you again for creating such an amazing tool that makes me look so good. I swear to you all, I literally just got this email.
That's awesome.
And this is the forwarded email from the photographer. Hey team, thank you so much for letting me know. I went ahead and wrote down some blah, blah, blah. Cool. We are so excited. I have literally been gushing over this timeline. It is the most magical thing ever. And Carolyn, you are a genius for your timeline wizardry. I swear to you all, like this literally, I get these kinds of emails. I get these emails all the time. Like I wish I could just give you all the deluge of videos and that's what really drives me. I love the idea of helping. That's why I started off with the problem. So please, again, guys, go to timelinegenius.com/webinar offer. Take advantage of this offer. It will never be more attractive. So with that, I guess I want to open up questions, Q&A here. Angela, I guess we can take Q&A now.
Yeah. Well, I see one person, she said, do you have a timeline that can be used for planning over a year?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the good thing about Timeline Genius is, let me just go back to it here. The good thing about Timeline Genius is when you have a timeline, it is yours to keep forever. When you have a timeline, you can literally work on it for 20 years if you want to. I mean, maybe I wouldn't recommend that, but when you have a timeline that you start, you can set the date for whatever. And when the date has come and gone, it just automatically goes into your archive section. But as long as you're working on it, it'll be here in your active timelines and you can work on it as long as you want.
Awesome. And then she says, "Is time?" You're going to love this question because we've been working on this and talking about this. But she said, "Is timeline magic only for weddings, or can it be tailored to other events as well?"
Oh, that's a great question. So we have been focused on the wedding day timeline here, but again, yeah, Angela, you and I have talked about this. We deliberately did not call it Wedding Day Timeline Genius. We called it Timeline Genius, period, because we absolutely do have people right now using Timeline Genius to do bar mitzvah timelines, to do corporate event timelines. The same fundamental structure applies where you have vendors, you have venues, and you have scheduled activities at preset times. So you can use Timeline Genius, and we're, over the course of this year, just going to be going further and further into the direction of providing features for other types of events. So a resounding yes is the answer to that.
Awesome. We have lots of people that have commented saying how awesome this is. They can see how it will save a ton of time, and they're asking for a replay. And we'll definitely get that sent out to you guys. Someone asked for a good resource to look into radios. And so if you'll shoot me an email directly, connect@angelaprofit.com, I will send you the link. We actually got our radios off of Amazon. I used to rent them, and then I decided to save money and get really good ones. And yeah, so I'm happy to provide that resource for you guys. A little off topic with, but it definitely helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, are there any other questions, I guess, rolling in? Yeah, I think Brooke is feeding us some of the questions that are coming in. There's one thing that I didn't mention that comes up a lot, which is some people have teams, and oh wait, here, do I need to give credit to Timeline Genius when I use it? No, you do not need to give credit at all. Timeline Genius, we are here to help you. And basically, we want to stay out of the picture and let you present your branding to people. So you use us when you invite your clients to access a timeline. It has your logo on it. Everything, there's no Timeline Genius. We don't put our name on the timelines, when you do them. So absolutely not. We're here just to make you look good. What if you have a same-sex wedding? That's a great question. You can absolutely do same-sex weddings. You can do Indian wedding, whatever kind of wedding you want to do, what kind of event you want to do. I didn't even show you all. If you click create new timeline, in addition to having this powerful Genius feature that will give you a tailor-made, algorithmically produced timeline template, you can also reuse old templates. Like, I want to start my timeline by reusing an old one. So you could have a pre-created same-sex wedding template or a pre-created, Indian wedding template or whatever, and you come in here and say, okay, I'm going to reuse my Becky and Robert timeline or reuse my same-sex wedding template. Now I'm going to put in my, bride. Let's say that it's Margaret, and I'll say it's Chris Becker. So I'll give it a name here, like Margaret and Chris. And what Timeline Genius is going to do, and I won't put in all the details here, but simply put, what Timeline Genius will do, it will take that old template that I want to reuse, and it's going to automatically swap out all the old venues with the new venues that I put in. It's going to swap out the old vendors with the new vendors that I put in. So I just kind of did this randomly, but now it's going to take that old template and repurpose it for my new wedding. So not only can you do same-sex weddings, but you can have a template, and it will be much faster for you to reuse that and have all the names get swapped out for the clients, for the vendors, and wham, here you are, you're just starting off immediately with your template repurposed for you. Can this be used for two planners? That is a great question. And the answer is a resounding yes, once again. In fact, that's been a real value point for a lot of our users. They say, and Angela, this kind of goes back to what you're saying, when a timeline is on your hard drive, well, what happens when you're out of the office and a call comes into the office and you need somebody to make an adjustment on the timeline? They can't really do it because you've got it on your laptop. But with Timeline Genius, anybody can log in. I've had so many planners that have said that's been a real lifesaver. Anybody can log in on your team if they need to see the timeline and make minor edits. So once again, that's a great question. What about a DIY bride who wants to create her own florals? Is there an area to create a timeline for on-site floral creations? Yeah, I mean, the beauty here, and I think I'm understanding this question correctly, the beauty here of Timeline Genius is there's an area for you to do whatever you want to do. If you wanted to, you could use your notes and reminder section here to craft out some things, or you could just add an elaborate, a new timeline item here and put it at the relevant time, and you could type all of the stuff that you wanted to type. I mean, you can almost kind of think about this like a Word doc, except it has the advantage of, being collaborative and being online and using structured data, but you could type in anything that you wanted to type here about your florals. And you could give, if you wanted to, you could invite, after you get this timeline item started, you could invite your client and give her access to it so she could go in and start tweaking things and making the copy read the way that she wanted to. Yeah, there's another quick question here. Is there one login? This is a great question. Is there one login? So if you have a team, the cool thing is everybody on your team can use this. The only sort of constraint is I would advise that you not be editing the same timeline at the same time. But if you have 10 or 20 people on your team, you could all be logged in, editing different timelines at the same time, and there won't be any trouble. Angela, I think maybe there's a question here for you.
Yeah, so someone says, how does someone become a wedding planner? And I actually am starting a wedding planning university where people can come and learn. So check out my website, angelaprofit.com, and watch for those classes. We're going to be going to a couple different cities, but honestly, the best thing to do is to shadow a experienced wedding planner that is in your town. And I do know that some girls that I tell them that they're like, there's no one locally that will let us shadow or let us learn. So I've had people fly down to Nashville and shadow us, and because I love to teach, and I'm not going to be doing this forever and ever and ever. Like, I'm actually transitioning now into teaching more. And so I have raised a great team, and they're wonderful, and they can do all of the stuff I can do too. And so it only makes sense for me to become more of a teacher. So watch the website for that. But there's definitely some tools out there to help people become a planner. I will say, from a college perspective, getting a degree in psychology and working in a morgue, in a mental hospital, and an AIDS clinic with some very sick people really makes me a patient planner. And I use all the psychology that I pretty much learned in my internship pretty much every day in working with different types of personalities. So if your parents are pushing you to go to college, getting a background in psychology and maybe a minor in business, in my opinion, would be the perfect degree.
I think, Angela, there's a question here for me too. This is actually a fantastic question. I'm so glad whoever asked this, thank you so much. What is the difference, they said, between Timeline Genius and Aisle Planner other than layout? Well, the difference, I think this is something like I want people to realize there are a lot of tools. There's a whole industry now that's been dubbed Wed Tech. And Angela, you alluded to this because there are other software tools like Honeybook and Aisle Planner and All Seated. Just because they're wedding softwares, please don't think that we're all the same. Honeybook is amazing for contracts, and Aisle Planner, they have a bunch of strengths. And All Seated, if you're doing floor plans, like we don't even touch floor plans. The difference with Timeline Genius is, first of all, we are, simply put, the best software for doing wedding day timelines. That's what we focus on because that's the problem that I homed in on that planners have, and I know how important timelines are. So for starters, in terms of the features, there's no Genius feature on Aisle Planner. You're not starting off where you can put in, your ceremony time and your religious tradition. Again, I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing Aisle Planner because they're great and everything I've heard about them from other planners has been great. But again, there's no time shifting function on Aisle Planner to my knowledge. There's no collaboration piece on Aisle Planner that's going to allow you to hide items and give access for viewing to certain items and access to edit certain timeline items. So we're really different software. There's no streamlined view like this to make assignments, so I think we're really different tools at the end of the day. And one thing, Angela, you and I talk about this all the time, but one of the big things that I guess I always advise is like mindset. Like I hope that if you're here on this webinar, you have the mindset of being forward thinking and taking advantage of all of the amazing tools and time savers that are out there. So, again, the bottom line with respect to Timeline Genius is Timeline Genius is going to save you more time on your timelines than any other tool out there. And, you can use other tools if you want to for floor planning and, doing your invoicing, planning pod, all these, but Timeline Genius, we nail the timeline process. So hopefully that answers that question.
And Eddie, I want to add to that because whenever I teach at a lot of these conferences, people say, why isn't there one software that does every single thing we need it to do, like our timeline, our layouts, our contracts, our quick, I mean, there's so many different things. And so there is no one software out there that does all of that. And I will say, you hear the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, but to find the best tools and surround yourself with that. And so when I say I use 32 apps and softwares on a daily basis to run a completely paperless office, that's the truth. However, it makes us so productive and we're able to travel and take on so much more because we do use the best softwares and apps for each and every specific thing. And hey, if one thing goes down, then your whole operation is not down. So I don't think that that's a bad thing. But again, I'll say it again, if I had to choose one, the most labor intensive thing is the timeline. So Timeline Genius would definitely be number one if my accountant said, hey, you have to pick one. There were a couple other questions on here. Somebody said, if you're a venue, how do you get your place out there to wedding planners? Well, there's a couple ways. There should be local bridal shows that usually are really, really beneficial for venues to get their name out there. Secondly, we actually plan a lot of open houses for new venues where we have ILEA or TWEZA, there's MPI, there's all these organizations that usually are in most of the major cities, and you can host an open house at your venue to get planners in the door to see your space. And then if you have a really good proactive marketing plan, getting them to do videos and tweet about it and basically giving them marketing materials to help market your venue is great. They also had a question, could we advertise on your site? Well, Eddie and I both have podcasts. And so Eddie interviews top people in the wedding industry. And then my podcast right now, we're just sharing stories and helping people learn who are in the wedding industry. And so actually next year, like we'll probably be getting into like sponsorships and things like that. So it's a great question. Personally, it's not a feature that I have right now where people can advertise. Is that something that you guys are looking at, Eddie?
We're really just focused on kind of giving value to people and not really doing the ad stuff, just kind of focusing on the software and then the content.
Awesome. And then Christy, she piped in here and said, I'll let you shadow me if you're in the Houston area. I'll be teaching a wedding course as well. So it's hard to find other planners apparently that will help. So thank you, Christy. That is awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, are there any other sort of questions? And hopefully you all have gotten a lot out of it. Every time, Angela, every time we connect, I learn something. And again, just so honored to have been here. It looks like I guess we've kind of, here, where do I find contacts for the couples? So is this, I don't know, are you seeing this question, Angela? I guess this is about Timeline Genius. So you have a wedding party contact section here, and this is where you would put in like your bridesmaids, your groomsmen, mother of the bride, all of that stuff. You can add them and their contact information. If you want to edit any of this, if you already have the contact info in your Rolodex, it will, automatically appear here. But you can put their name, their email address, their phone number, and it'll all be here. And whenever you save your timeline in PDF format, it's nicely listed here in your wedding party contact section. And again, when you collaborate, you can actually give your bride or groom or whomever access to directly edit the wedding party contact section, him or herself. Yeah, these were great questions. This has been a ton of fun. Okay, does this program communicate? That is so somebody just asked, does this program communicate with other programs like Aisle Planner or Honeybook where we can just merge info? So that is the direction where this whole wed tech industry is going, in my humble opinion. And Angela, you just spoke, I think, really intelligently to this point. Like I hear so many people talk about, I want one software. Well, the reality is, unless Google gets into this with like $1 billion budget, it is really, really difficult to build a tool that is going to do for timelines what Timeline Genius does. And it's really difficult to build a tool that's going to do for contracts what Honeybook does. I mean, that's why it's going to be very rare that you're going to find these sort of companies or these functionalities under one hood together. So this question, and not to get techie here, but the term is integration. When, Timeline Genius is, quote, talking to these other softwares, we're talking about doing integrations. And we are not integrated at this point in time with others, but we have had conversations with the likes of Honeybook about integrating. But again, the main thing that I think the integration can save time with is something that we've already developed functionality for. When you have your Rolodex, if you already have all your contacts entered in another place, be it Excel or Google Drive or Honeybook or wherever, if you get them out of that, then all you have to do is send them to us and we can import your contacts. Like you do not have to manually enter your contacts. But yes, in the future, I see the landscape evolving the same way that Angela said, which is there will be these integrations and you will have a constellation of tools that are very well adapted at saving you time and hassle for given work streams, if that makes sense. Great questions.
And then Lori said, I'm a new planner. I have access to free trial of our planner. So I'm trying to determine what's the best value for me. I like the contracts, but it doesn't seem to have a timeline template like Timeline Genius. Well, I'll tell you, no software has this. And she said, what's your honest advice for a new planner? Understandably, like new planners, I mean, when I first started doing this, I did this for fun. I had a full-time job for 9 years. I lived two different lives. And I mean, I will say, first off, you're doing an amazing job by educating yourself on what's out there and in terms of what's the best use. Again, if I had to go back and choose one thing, I'm going to choose the most labor intensive thing. And so the timeline and Timeline Genius is something that you're not going to find anywhere else. And in terms of contracts, like, yes, I'm very familiar with Honeybooks and Owl Planner, and they're great. However, like our attorney did our contract, it changes all the time. We use DocuSign or HelloSign or one of those sign programs that's $10 a month. And so I don't use either of these, but I know that they're great. But again, like as you start to grow and you start to get more weddings, you at least are abreast of like what's going on in the industry and how you can keep up and manage your business, because that's where a lot of people get so worn down is they're like, gosh, I love planning weddings, but the business side of things is just killing me. So my advice is try new things and see what is going to fit your personality best. Someone asked about the annual fee for Timeline Genius and said, is the annual fee this for life?
Yeah, so the way it works, first let me say one quick thing, Angela, because I love, this is why I love like the idea of doing a webinar with you and being on panels with you, because what you say is just dead on. This notion of applauding the new planner here for trying other things and for
Yeah.
investigating, like seriously, like I want to stand up and clap, like that is the key, to have the mindset to be someone who is not just stuck, well, this is the way I've done timelines for like my whole life. And this is the way I've like, if you're coming into this, especially and you're starting with a blank slate, set up the ideal infrastructure, inform yourself, and just be mindful. It's 2017. Technology and software is doing so much. So, and this is not even a plug just for Timeline Genius. Obviously, I've told everybody I think Timeline Genius is amazing. I've shown you why, but more broadly, yes, be on the vanguard. Always be thinking about streamlining your business. So now to circle back, Angela, to the question of, again, the offer terms, it's $249 annually. So that means each year you renew for $249 annually. And this ties to another question. I think somebody's asking about the mobile feature. Obviously, Angela being Angela, this is something that she and I have talked about. The minute I met her and saw like all the apps and the mobile capability and how paperless, like, yes, mobile is coming for Timeline Genius, absolutely, positively. 2017, you will see everything that I just showed you, you will be able to do on your mobile phone very soon. And that ties back to this question of, the sort of special offer that we have today. The pricing that we have is only going to increase over time because we're constantly adding new features, the mobile feature set. We're adding right now a file manager feature set that's going to let you share files with people, like your floor plan, your centerpiece images. There's always new stuff coming. So of course, over time, we will be increasing the pricing. But the really cool thing, and why I'm encouraging everybody to take advantage, please take advantage of the special offer. And again, there's a money back guarantee, but when you take advantage of the offer today, you lock in the terms, $249 a year, annual unlimited access. So it's just a package, a subscription that you can renew on an annual basis, and you won't find that on our website.
Which is amazing. It's so funny. There's so many apps and softwares that we use, and someone will ask me if I'm teaching on stage, well, how much is that? How much is that? And I'll say, oh, it's like $10 a month, which is $10 a month for me because I've been using it for 5 years. And then they'll go back to like the website or whatever, and they're like, oh, it's $49.99 a month now. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I'm like, maybe I shouldn't quote numbers on stage anymore. But that's how you get locked into these prices, is investing and using things early on. I mean, gosh, yes, a lot of the softwares we use have gone up, and they go up every year because more people start using them, and they become much, much more just important, I guess, so they can ask for more money. So somebody said, do you think today's couples would be put off by limited payment options such as paying by cash, check, or money versus having a program where I could accept online payments? I don't want to turn someone off simply by not taking online payments. Well, I mean, quickly, not that it has too much to do about timelines, but if you shoot me an email and or send me your email address, I'm happy to send you some things that can help with this. In my opinion, if somebody wants you bad enough, and they love your work and they love what you do, it doesn't matter how you take payments. They should have no problem writing you a check or cash. I mean, in fact, a lot of our clients don't pay with a credit card. I mean, we do want them to have one on file, of course, but people are funny about that. So it shouldn't turn couples off at all, in my opinion. We've never had someone say, oh, you don't do online payments. But I will say QuickBooks is pretty amazing. There is like a small fee, but again, if you're not having to keep up with all of that and you have a system doing it for you, why not? My email is connect, CONNECT, like connect the dots. So it's connected Angela, ANGELA, profit, PROFFITT.com. And I typed it in the chat earlier as well. So hopefully you guys got that. There was another question I got it. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Brooke, were there any other questions? These are all awesome questions,
yeah,
guys. And again, thanks so much for your time, and congratulations on working on your business. I know it's busy season, but there is no better time to figure out how to create more time in the day. And so by using Timeline Genius and checking it out, and it's amazing, Eddie, that you guys do the money back guarantee, because I don't know too many people that do that. So it's pretty awesome. But if you guys have other questions, keep our email addresses handy. Like Eddie said, he's available, and I can attest to that. Anytime I have a question or need anything, Eddie and I end up working pretty late at night. And so whenever I need anything, he is always very available, which customer service is very important to me. And so that's another reason that I enjoy working with Timeline Genius and Eddie so much, is because they value customer service the same way that we do in our company. So if you have other questions, be sure to shoot us an email. Let us know how we can help. And I hope everyone has a great wedding season. And Eddie, do you have any other final thoughts?
I don't. It's been such a blast and such an honor to be here, Angela. You're amazing. Thank you all for showing up. I hope I have the honor of working with you with Timeline Genius. Have a wonderful wedding season, and thank you again for just showing up today.
Bye, y'all. Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.